Hello, in this video we're going to discuss Yorky the Black Knight from Kent, part 1. So this story starts off in heaven. Yorky was part of a group of archangels who, with God, Mary, Jesus and the Holy Spirit, deployed to earth in order to assist humankind with the tech tree. And the reason why there's a tech tree is in order to make life better for people to live. So this involved coming to earth as a knight. Other angels came to earth as knights and as samurai and soldiers and archers. One person who we said is a problem in heaven, FC, he was back then volunteered to come to earth as a priest, and for his part he was supposed to deliver for the tech tree, the retreat for priests and nuns, and also the discovery of the alpha sprout, and that was all. He didn't have to do anything else. When FC volunteered for this, he made one request, which is extremely unusual. He had overheard some angels talking about how hard life was on earth, and about hardship, about being hungry and cold, things like that, and begging for food and other things. So in heaven, just remember, it's a high-tech environment. There are robots, and it's a very comfortable place. So FC told God that he would volunteer to come to earth as a priest, and everyone was amazed when they heard it. They thought, oh yeah, finally he's going to stop being a criminal in heaven and start doing good. So he was blessed with being able to come to earth, but then he made one request for hardship, and it was a problem, a big problem, because the request for hardship was quite detailed. There was a lot of things he wanted which appalled everybody. He had a list. He had an interview with the scientist in heaven, and with God, Mary and Jesus and the Holy Spirit, and he was asked question after question after question of what it is in fact that he wanted. He had a list, and for weeks he was told by the scientist, don't do this. But instead of listening, he went along with it. God authorized the deployment for him to come to earth as a priest and experience hardship. It sounds even more weird later on when FC returned to heaven, then asked to come back to earth as a man who died being drowned. So his mindset is quite odd. In the end, that was taken away from him. They didn't, with FC, they didn't, they let him come to earth as a priest who experienced hardship. But with the second time that he came, where he came to earth as a man who died of drowning, he was in fact replaced, and there was a slight change in history where the person who replaced him did not kill himself, and instead remained with his family and looked after his children. So because FC later on used that as an excuse for some of the nasty things he's been doing recently, and that's why it came up, and it's to do with purgatory. So the things that he did more recently have led him to purgatory, and one of his excuses was that. But he never said being a priest was one of his excuses, which is extremely unusual. So prior to this deployment for Yorky, there was a knight on Earth who was also the same angel, Yorky, but he came to Earth as a different person, Galahad. So Galahad is not known in history at all. He was on Earth during the Dark Ages, and during Galahad's time, he had to introduce to the tech tree for England and Europe steel. And there was a problem back then because everyone had adopted copper and were using that exclusively for everything. Copper and bronze. So they stuck with copper and bronze and they just kept using it. So the Romans used steel, but the technology never spread. So with Galahad, he wound up a knight and was later made a king and led England into increasing their technology and using steel. This involved him bringing in some unusual laws in order to convince the people to stop using bronze. The people were quite stubborn. They wanted to stick with just using bronze, and it took a lot of convincing. In the end, he had to use laws in order to force people to stop using it. Some people were impressed by Galahad. One of them was the Archangel Gabriel in heaven. Well, one of the archangels called Gabriel. There's many people called Gabriel in heaven. Another was Nathan. So the Archangel Nathan also decided to come to earth to help with the team that was working with Yorky. Jesus came to earth as King George II. And for his part, he was to be the King of England. God decided to come to earth as a knight as well and help. So there was a group of people that came to earth in order to help Yorky. Now when we talk about Yorky brutally killing men, women and children, it's extremely brutal and violent. That is the nature of being a knight. So living as a knight is not like in the fairy tales. Essentially what happens is they don't get paid. How they get money is by killing people and taking their money. That's what they do. They never ever get paid, and in the case of the knights in Kent, they never got fed either. So and the reason for this is because the castle, the barracks where the soldiers and archers lived, if they saw a knight off his horse, they'd kill him. And when knights tried to get food from the mess, the soldiers and the archers would kill them. They rape and torture them and rob them of everything. So that was one of the things that was a problem for knights. So knights and in particular their squires had to be good at hunting and fishing and find their own food. A stable diet of knights at one point, well at many points, also included worms. So they had to live off worms in order to survive. In the case of Yorky, he had to raise funds in order to add to the tech tree the trade routes. So it wasn't done at the king's level. It was, or the queen's level. It was privately funded by Yorky. And another person that was working with this was Battlemech. So Battlemech came to Earth as a captain of a ship. And he's living artificial intelligence from heaven. So there were teams that were working together for the tech tree. So the Commonwealth is also part of this. So the reason why there's a Commonwealth is the idea is for technology and goods to be shared among the nations, and this allows as technology is discovered, it's shared, and everyone's nation benefits from it. When it comes to the settlers, living artificial intelligence and archangels from heaven were involved. So a normal person doesn't leave the place where they live and move to somewhere far away. So in order to achieve this, angels and living artificial intelligence from heaven were used to act as the settlers. And so that's why people settled in the nations and moved to parts of the world such as New Zealand and Australia. So with the countries, with the Commonwealth, countries like New Zealand benefited from this and benefit from the trade routes and from the technology. So Captain James Cook was the Holy Spirit, and he came to Earth in order to help discover countries and to connect them with England so that they could become part of the Commonwealth and benefit from the technology and the trade routes. I'm the Archangel Daniel, and I'm from heaven.